Hello and welcome to skedline.com. This is a skedline.com special with Mike Ranger, Brandon Tretter, and of course your host, Aaron Ranson. And we will be going through our brackets and our picks for this year's 2019 March Madness tournament. Brandon, why don't you start us off?
All right, so I'm going to start off with everyone's favorite part about March Madness. I've got an upset here. I've got the revenge of the nerds, and I've got the 14 seed Yale upsetting the 3 seed LSU in the first round. Yale won their conference tournament, beating Harvard in the finals. This is their fifth time at the Big Dance and only their second appearance since 1962. They were able to bounce the Baylor Bears in 2016, so I'm taking them to tame the Tigers this year before bowing out to Maryland in the second round. Moving to the South bracket, I've got the Oregon Ducks making a bit of a run too as a 12 seed. Despite losing projected lottery pick Bowl earlier in the season, the Ducks went on to win the Pac-12 tournament. They'll have a tough matchup though with the 5th seed Wisconsin, but I have the Ducks coming out on top, also beating Kansas State in the second round before the clock strikes midnight in the Sweet 16 when they bow out to Virginia. I see a lot of similarities between this team and the 2017 Ducks team. Remember that was the team that lost Chris Boucher early in the year? Yeah, exactly, and then eventually the team still made a run to the Final Four. Obviously that team had more talent than this one, but I still like their ability to rally around their fallen teammate. Now let's take a look at my Cincinnati Bearcats. Mick Cronin has this team in their 9th straight tournament, and I've got them making their first Elite Eight since 1996. I'm banking on home field advantage here playing a factor, as Cincinnati will be playing just up I-71 in Columbus. I have the Bearcats beating the 10-seeded Iowa before pulling off a huge upset over the 2-seed Tennessee Volunteers in the second round. So I'll have them pull off one more upset over the Boilermakers of Purdue before bowing out to Virginia in the Elite Eight. The key player to watch for Cincinnati is 6'5" forward Jerron Cumberland. The Bearcats' leading scorer is averaging 18.8 points per game on the year. All right, now let's get to the exciting part. I got Minneapolis, the Final Four. I went out on a limb here. I went with 4 under-the-radar teams, 4 underdogs. I've got Michigan, Duke, Virginia, and Kentucky. Ultimately, I have Duke beating out Kentucky in the final. Obviously, R.J. Barrett and Zion Williams have been 2 of the most exciting players in the country, and they've got the Hall of Fame coach and Coach K. I can go on and on about Duke, but let's just not take my word for it. I caught up with host of The Good Show on Sportsnet 590, J.D. Bunkus. He's also the host of the Free Association podcast, and I got his thoughts on the tournament. He also likes Duke to win the whole thing. He cited the 2 best players in the country, Zion and RJ, the Hall of Fame coach. One other thing he pointed out was they've got maybe the easiest draw in the bracket. He doesn't like the competition there. He also said they've got 2 big wins over number 1 seed Virginia this year, and they also beat UNC in their conference tournament. He ended by saying, why wouldn't you ride with the most exciting team in the tournament with a generational college player?
Well, I got a couple reasons why you wouldn't ride with them, but let's move on. After Brandon's hot take there of Duke winning, Mike, what do you think? You got a couple hot takes yourself.
Well, like Brandon, he had 2 seeds in his Final Four. 2 1 seeds, in his Final Four. I also have 2 1 seeds, but I got some different teams in there. In the East, coming out of the East region, I like the Michigan State Spartans to come out of that region over the Duke Blue Devils. I like Gonzaga to come out of the West. I like the Kentucky Wildcats to come out of the Midwest. And I like the Virginia Cavaliers to come out of the South. This year, for me, this tournament is all about redemption. We all know what happened with Virginia last year.
I like it.
The first ever number 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed. They lost to the UMBC Golden Retrievers.
Those Golden Retrievers.
They've come out back this year. They've been dominant all year. They were 28-2 in the regular season. Those 2 losses were to your Duke Blue Devils. That's a team they won't have to face until the finals of this year's tournament. And like I said, I don't like the Blue Devils getting past the Spartans in the East region, so they won't have to worry about them. There was some speculation that sophomore DeAndre Hunter would leave for the NBA last year. He decided to stick around. He didn't play in last year's loss to the Golden Retrievers. He had a broken ankle, so he's going to be jacked up for his first tournament game. He's averaging 15-5-2 for the Cavaliers. I like Tony Bennett to lead this team to the win in the 2019 NCAA men's basketball tournament. Looking at some upsets in the East bracket, I have a lot of upsets in the East. I love the Yale pick. I think they can get past LSU. Obviously, there's a lot of turmoil going on with the LSU Tigers. Every year I do my bracket, the 12 seeds burn me, so I'm hedging my bets this year. I have all 4 12 seeds in each region going through. Wow. In the East region, it's the Atlantic Sun champs, the Liberty Flames. They will get past the 5 Mississippi State, and they will get past the 4 Virginia Tech in the next round to go on to the Sweet 16. Moving on to the West region, I like the 12-seed Murray State Racers to come up to win their first game in this region. You talked about Zion Williamson. You talked about R.J. Barrett. The guy who's probably going to be the number 2 pick in the NBA draft this year after Zion, Ja Morant. First player in NCAA Div 1 history to average 20 points and 10 assists. The Racers had an easier schedule this year. They play in the Ohio Valley Conference, but it's going to be exciting to see Morant go up against some bigger schools. They had a game against Auburn this year. They had a game against Alabama. They came up short. Both were really close games. Morant played huge. He also played huge in the Ohio Valley Finals against Belmont, where he put up 36 points. If they can get anything from their supporting staff, I think they will get past Marquette in the first round of this year's tournament. Elsewhere in the West, I like the most experienced team in the tournament, the Nevada Wolfpack. If you remember last year, this team went to the Sweet 16. They have 6 seniors coming back. Caleb Martin, Cody Martin, the Martin brothers, both guys made the all-defensive team in the Mountain West this year. Caleb's averaging 19, 5, and 3. Jordan Caroline is another player on the Wolfpack that people have pegged as a possibly late second-round pick in the NBA draft. I like the Wolfpack to win their first game against Florida. I like them to get by the number 2 Michigan Wolverines in the second round. And then I like them getting by Texas Tech, moving on to the Elite Eight. Another upset that I like in the South, Aaron, the UC Irvine Anteaters. I know that you like them too.
You know, we got a few common picks here. I like Murray State. I love Morant, but I absolutely love my UC Irvine Anteaters.
I like them too.
13 seed. This is my Cinderella story for 2019, and they will reach the Sweet 16. Spoiler alert. These Anteaters are a nightmare draw for any team that comes against them, especially the Kansas State Wildcats. These Wildcats are known for their offense inside the key, and entering the tournament, the best rim protecting team in the nation is the UC Irvine Anteaters. These Anteaters don't only have an elite defense, however, they have an offense to go along with it. 5 highly touted three-point shooters are on this roster. And with an offense and a defense, I believe these guys can not only win their first round game, they can move on to the Sweet 16. Let's move on to the West, okay? University of Buffalo. I have them making the Elite Eight. Someone who's going to talk a little bit more about that is UB alum Jesse Alt-Winzig. Thanks for being here, Jesse. And there's a lot of energy around these Bulls. Can you remember a time when there's been this much excitement around a team in Buffalo?
Absolutely not, especially with a city with a very bad history of losing in professional and college sports. The electricity in the arenas for these basketball games are just incredible. Season tickets are up, attendance up, merchandise sales are way up. Applications for the University of Buffalo are up. The energy is amazing in Buffalo, and we are so excited for our Bulls to finally be kind of predicted to go kind of far in this tournament. We're very excited for it.
Yeah, I think everybody in Buffalo has reason to be excited. They're quite the story this year, but an underlining story. A story that many of you might not have heard about. Last year's UB coach, Bobby Hurley, at the beginning of this year, left for Arizona State. Of course, when you take a look at the bracket, Arizona State is playing a play-in game against St. John's, and they have the potential to match up against UB in the first round. This matchup is going to be outstanding, Jesse, and if it happens, would you say UB and their fans are actually looking forward to an Arizona State win? Are you guys cheering for Arizona State?
Well, of course, that would be great. Just seeing Nate Oates going against his former head coach and Bobby Hurley would be pretty cool to see, and obviously it would be great to beat them. But, we're always going to be rooting for guys that used to be here, so obviously tonight I'm kind of rooting for Arizona State because, of course, I want to see them and I want to beat them. But at the same time, when you have a coach leave such a small market, small school where he did so much for us and then leave just to go for more money and go for a bigger name school, it would be absolutely amazing to beat Arizona State where, they come in here thinking that they could easily beat us, small name school, and we're gonna show them what we're all about, the Bulls.
Yeah, I mean, the Bulls, they set a school record this season, 31 wins, I believe, and I have them going to the Elite Eight, so I subscribe to everything you said there. But I'm interested as a UB alum and a fanatic of UB sports, somebody who's been following this team very closely. What do you think is a realistic expectation for these Bulls this March?
Realistically, there is no reason to not have them in at least your Sweet 16, and if not your Sweet 16, maybe your Elite 8. I think they got a really good bracket. I think their region is although Gonzaga is very good, I think they're beatable. I think Michigan's beatable. Very lucky not to be in Duke's region. I absolutely think they could be a Sweet 16, Elite 8, and it wouldn't even be crazy to see them going all the way to the Final Four. You know, this team, they're riding a 12-game winning streak, 26-game home winning streak. They're ready to go. They got the MAC tournament MVP. They got the MAC Coach of the Year. Nate Oates is he's the semifinalist for Naismith Coach of the Year, which is a national award. And I absolutely think that we could have them in the Sweet 16, Elite 8, or even Final Four.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, traditionally in this tournament, a team that brings back returning players from the previous year, most of the time they do very well in the tournament, and Buffalo has 4 returning starters to this roster. I think that experience in the tournament, as well as that experience on the team itself, will benefit UB, and I think, as I said, I think they're going to go to the Elite 8. Thanks, Jesse, for being with us. Thanks for being on the show, and hopefully your Bulls can pull it out for you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me on, and go Bulls.
Okay, go Bulls. And, moving on. I know we've gone into a lot of detail, a lot of stats, a lot of statistics on a lot of these picks, but you know what? When you're making a bracket, how many times are you actually looking up the stats? How many times are you actually looking up the players on each team? Sometimes you just have to go with your gut. And these Purdue Boilermakers in the South region have my gut on their side. I think they're not only a prestigious program that's always in it, these Boilermakers have 24 Big Ten championships, which is the most in NCAA history. They have reached the Final Four twice, and I think this year they're going to make it a third time in 2019. You've heard it here first, boys and girls. Purdue Boilermakers will not only be making boilers this March, but they'll be making noise. I know. Let's move on to the LSU Tigers. Bracketologists are going to hate this pick.
Can't believe you're going to do this.
They're going to hate it, but I have to do it. LSU's been taking it on the chin, and I have to support them. I have LSU taking this entire tournament. The Tigers are consistently reported as a potential upset victim as they drew Yale in the round of 64. This Yale team may match up well against them, but I believe these Tigers have a chance. I mean, look, guys, I understand the controversy behind this team. Coach Will Wade's been suspended indefinitely, of course, and fans are showing little to no confidence in interim head coach Tony Benford. But I believe there are 3 reasons the Tigers can do this. First off, they have the talent. Star guard Tremont Waters does everything for this team. He truly is the straw that stirs the drink. Most experts believe that if he was not 5'10", if he was even 6 foot, he would have been a one-and-done prospect for the NBA draft. Of course, Tigers fans are glad that he's not. He will be helping them win this tournament. 2, they have the pedigree. This program is known for success. They have 12 SEC championships, 4 Final Four appearances, and a national championship. This team knows how to win. It's in their culture, and they're going to do it. Next, they have the story, the narrative. Every year we talk about a narrative, we talk about a story. What better story than the team that nobody expects to make it through, the team that is always predicted to be an upset in the first round, making it and winning the finals. I believe that this team loses their coach, rallies behind Tony Benford, and takes this national championship. Book it. All right, now that we've given our picks, and I mean, some picks are better than others, but I want to hear from a professional, somebody who works in the sporting industry. We have Eric Thomas on the line here. He's a Sportsnet host. And Eric, have you finished your bracket? And I'm sorry, I got to put you on the spot here. Who's your winner?
Yes, absolutely. I just filled out my bracket earlier tonight before the tournament officially tipped off. I do 2 every year. I do 2 brackets with all of my college buddies. So one of my brackets I fill out based on like look and feel alone, and I don't touch it at all before the tournament starts. And in that bracket, I have Gonzaga taking the whole thing. And then in my second bracket, which I can adjust if I'd like up to obviously tip-off time on Thursday morning, I've got Virginia winning the whole thing. And, of course, Virginia is a number 1 seed again this year, but last year was the first ever number 1 seed to get knocked off by a 16.
Yeah.
So, I want to take the Cavaliers for the redemption story.
All right, Eric, I couldn't help but notice you don't have the tournament favorites Duke winning there. Do you think this has to do with all the hype around Zion Williamson?
It's not so much the Zion factor, and I think one of the best things, obviously, for them is that he not only decided to come back, but the way that he did come back. The last couple of games of the season and into the ACC tournament, he looked like the same player that we've seen all year long. So that's not so much what I'm worried about, and I really love RJ Barrett, obviously, not only for the Canadian content, but he's going to be a top 3 pick in the draft this upcoming summer. He's just shown that he knows how to hoop and how to do it at a really high level. And for the two of them, I was talking about this with my co-anchor, Carly Agro. The fact that two guys at that level that are going to should be superstars at the next level or at the very least top picks and top prospects going into the NBA, the fact that they can play together and that Coach K has been able to make everything mesh, I think is remarkable when you really think about it and look at it. The problem for them right now is Marcus Bolden. Their center, basically, the guy in the middle for them, got injured, sprained his knee, and they don't know if they're going to get him back for the tournament. They don't know if he does come back, at what level he'll be playing at. Jack White is another guy kind of off the bench who struggled with injuries all year in and out of the lineup. So it's not so much the top guys that I worry about. Trey Jones is a heck of a point guard, and obviously Zion and RJ are leading the show. It's the cast around them and whether or not the other guys, because that's what the tournament is all about. You have to find a second or third option because everybody's going to be looking at tape and everybody knows who's who at this time of year. It's not about whether or not RJ or Zion is going to get theirs. I expect that. It's how many guys for Duke can step up outside of those two, and that's what I'm worried about.
Eric, you mentioned RJ Barrett there. Any other Canadians that you think people need to watch out for in this tournament?
As the Canadian content goes, for Iowa State, that's one of the top teams in the tournament, obviously. But I think Shock is his name. I'm going to try and look him up real quick. But yeah, he's one of the top Canadian kids. There's Bemard out of Florida, who is a 10 seed going up against Nevada. So I expect he made a shot somewhere near the end of the SEC tournament where or got fouled, was trying to shoot a three, is a 78% free throw shooter from the line and could have tied it up at that point. So Iowa State and Florida are a couple of teams with, Canadian kids that I would look at as far as the tournament goes, obviously outside of RJ Barrett.
Eric, Canadian content aside, I know we have to cover the Canadian content, but do you have any surprise or upset picks? I know all three of us do, and I know every bracket includes them. Who would you pick?
I think the Buffalo Bulls, a 6 seed, and I know, their first round matchup will be against an 11, but they've been playing really well all year, been ranked for most of the year in the top 25, if not cracking the teams at some points. And I think that's a really underrated team out of the MAC conference, but they have a nice first round matchup. Like I said, they're 6 seeds, so they're going to be playing an 11, one of the two teams that plays in that play-in game tomorrow, depending on who wins that. And then I see them beating Texas Tech. I see them potentially getting past Michigan and into the Elite Eight, and might give Gonzaga some trouble depending on where that seed ends up. Another big one is Seton Hall, who is a 10 seed who would potentially have to get past Wofford, so that's a 7 seed. That would be an upset. And then would probably play Kentucky in the second round, which is a 2 seed. So they beat Kentucky earlier this year. I believe the game went to overtime, but beat Kentucky handily. So they were already beaten the Wildcats, shown that they can do that and prove that they can stick with a lot of teams in the country. And obviously Kentucky is the top team at a 2 seed. So Seton Hall, I would say, and Buffalo right now are probably the two best teams. And then just looking up and down the rest of the brackets, depending on whether or not Belmont can get past Temple in tonight's game, I can see one of those two teams beating Maryland. And to be honest, I'm looking at my bracket right now. I don't have Maryland winning that next game. So I think either Belmont or Temple, whoever wins tonight, will beat Maryland and then potentially LSU as well, because you have to remember with that LSU situation, it's a very strange thing right now where Will Wade, their head coach, was caught on wiretaps talking about making payments to players. The top point guard right now for their team did come back, but was the player that was implicated in, those allegations. So there's a lot of turmoil for a 3 seed like LSU.
So obviously we were talking to Eric a little bit earlier in the week. Belmont did end up winning that play-in game. So any of you out there, if you want to heed Eric's advice, take a look at Belmont in the East region.
Yeah, I mean, he made a couple great points. I love his Buffalo points. Don't like his LSU points as much. But now that we've heard the analyst's opinion, we've heard the fans' opinion, and we've heard Mike's, Brandon's, and my superior opinion, it's time to queue up the round of 64. That starts on Thursday. And next week, we'll be queuing up the Sweet 16 and recapping rounds 1 and 2. From all of us here at Skedline, thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the madness.